What is the common good challenge for big data?
Well, Mac, there is an emphasis right now on big data for private sector organizations and less emphasis on big data for common good. And by common good, Jake Porway and I sort of mean both government as well as civic organizations and philanthropy. So these folks who have been historically trying to do social good on the ground have depended on particular sorts of data that are no longer available or that are now just sort of lost in a sea of data. Sort of riding the data wave becomes more challenging. For example, the Red Cross may need information on where folks live, what are the income distributions, where are poor folks, where are sort of disabled and elderly, and those sorts of data are less available for several reasons we could talk about. I could wax on forever. The opportunity for social media, user-generated content, predictive analytical data, for example, from Netflix, Amazon, those sorts of organizations, to be delivered to social organizations is immense and tremendous. And we really want to be able to hook up those organizations who need the data with folks who can help sort of make that translation and make the big data live for them.
What are the primary pain points or data pain points that civic organizations are facing?
Well, the one that comes to mind immediately is the Census Bureau used to release long form data. There used to be this really cool data every 10 years you would get about where people live at the census tract level, who's poor, who's got low income, where how transportation to work, who's unemployed, and now that big data for them has gone away, there's much less ability to figure out where are folks who need social services. The Census Bureau has replaced the long form every 10-year data with something called the American Community Survey. But those can have standard errors like 90%, plus or minus 90%. So they're no longer really relevant for doing really local level data, local level analysis around who needs what, where, and when. And so what we're hoping is that Scraper Wiki's sort of private sector big data can be used to deliver the same sort of information to civic organizations, for the common good.
So, how can those pain points be addressed? I mean, what are the types of solutions that will really help civic organizations? Is it better data, more data? I mean, those are two big ones.
Yeah, everybody wants better data and more data. I mean,
right.
I feel like we have to live with the data that we have. So, for example, I've talked a lot about private sector data, but there's also sort of the whole open gov movement. And, we want sort of more municipal level data, but the ability for organizations to really sort of consume that data is much more difficult. So that's why the Metro Chicago Information Center that I represent, sort of teaming up with local and national folks like Data Without Borders to get a sense of, or to try to bring real data science to the issues at hand. So for example, we're all excited about hackathons, but when MCIC, for example, we did the Apps for Metro Chicago competition and really tried to bring together community folks with the civic hackers to come up with solutions that would address community organizations' needs. So to take the sort of the hackathons a step further and really talk about them as what we called hack salons, where we got
that's good.
Where we brought community folks in to say, this is really what we need to know about crime data. We don't need to know like, are you safe, but we need to know sort of what's happening when, what are the hotspots in our neighborhood. And the challenge really was to get that conversation going, to get those two folks really talking to each other and speaking the same language. And that's very difficult. So what Data Without Borders is doing is sort of taking that to a national level and sort of supplementing what local folks like us, local place-based folks are doing on the ground, and sort of doing it on a national level and having the data dives, what they call data dives, happening in different cities around the United States. So sort of if Data Without Borders partners with a local, what we call data intermediary for place-based initiatives, or sort of this local data intermediary, a legacy data intermediary like MCIC, then there's this ability to bring national scale attention and some data scientists and some enthusiasm from sort of that community to really addressing local problems. So we're very excited, sort of helping the legacy organizations become a more big tent organization, and really sort of understanding the new reality of data and where it's going.
So last question for you, and
Sure.
I think it dovetails with what we were just talking about there. What are examples of projects that are doing it right? I mean, is the sort of unifying construct of Data Without Borders, is that the right game plan? Is that what other people should be emulating?
I think it's a work in progress. I think we're just beginning to say, okay, we've got OpenGov, we've got big data. What are these what are these organizations going to do now? So I think that Code for America, for example, is Chicago's now a Code for America city, and they were in sort of figuring out what to do. They had something called that was a hack-salon, an idea hack, and just continuing those conversations and seeing where they're going at both the national and local level has to happen. I'm not sure what it's going to look like in 5 years. I don't know what it's going to look like in 10 years, but at least the realization that there are local folks on the ground, organizations on the ground that have depended upon data for a long time and need to be served is,
Well, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thanks.